Hi friends, this is Sarvajang here. Welcome to my networking channel. Hope all are doing good. And today the topic I am going to discuss about how to configure basic OSPF configuration via CLI in a FortiGate firewall. So here in this architecture, I connected two FortiGate firewall, port 1 and 2 by a physical port 1. And the interface IP is 192.168.1.1 on firewall 1 and 1.2 on firewall 2. And additionally, also I am going to define the loopback address 1.1.1 on firewall 1 and 2.2.2 on firewall 2. Then I will be configuring the OSPF and I will be advertise these networks. Okay, so these are the basic things I am going to do. So now let us go to the first firewall, that is firewall 1, and let us define the interface, physical interface. So the command is config system interface edit port 1. Then now change the mode to static. So set mode is static. Set IP is 192.168.1.1, 255.255.255.0. Then set the allow access as ping. So I'm going to allow only ping communication. And now let us save the configuration. Similar way, let us go to the second firewall and let us define this interface IP. Okay. So firewall 2. So the command is config system interface edit port 1. Set mode is static mode. Since I'm defining a static IP, then let us define the IP 192.168.1.2, 255.255.255.0, and then let us save the configuration. So now let us do a direct ping between these firewall 1 and 2. Then we'll define the loopback address 1.1.1 and 2.2.2 on firewall 1 and 2. Okay. So let us ping the remote interface, execute ping 192.168.1.2, and from firewall 2 execute ping firewall 1 IP is 192.168.1.1. So this is my IP. How to view the interfaces? Show system interface port 1. Okay, this is a configuration for viewing the running configuration. Okay, for viewing the port configuration, command is show system interface port 1. Now I am going to define the loopback address, that is 1.1.1. So how to define is go to config system interface and edit loop. That means I am defining a loopback interface. So now I need to change this type as a loopback. So set type, it is loopback. Okay, so now we have to define a virtual domain for loopback address. So let us define it as root. Then we have to set the IP, right? These are the basic things. So instead of port 1, if this is a logical port, right? This is a loopback interface. So I have to define config system interface edit loop and the type as loopback. Then we have to define a virtual domain. Then we have to set the IP. So set IP is 1.1.1, okay, /32. And now let us save the configuration. Okay, so now how to view the configuration is show system interface loop. Okay, you are able to do. So one more thing is pending is we have to allow the ping access. Okay, so config system interface edit loop, then we have to set allow access ping. Okay, so now we have done the loopback configuration. So this is a loopback configuration, and the similar configuration I do define on this firewall 2 also. So let us go to firewall 2, config system interface edit loop. So loop entry added. So now we have to set the virtual domain as root. Then we have to set the interface type as loopback. Okay. Then we have to set the IP. So what is the IP we are going to define is 2.2.2. Okay. So 2.2.2/32. Then let us save the configuration. So now let us view the running configuration. And also one more thing, I have to define the allow the ping access, right? So config system interface edit loop set allow access ping, then save the configuration, show system interface loop. Okay, so now let us do a ping to the loopback address. Execute ping 2.2.2. I have defined the loopback address and also I'm able to ping, and also from the first firewall define 1.1.1. So execute ping 1.1.1. So I'm able to ping the physical interface and the loopback address. So now the pending part is I need to configure the OSPF configuration and I need to advertise these two networks. Okay. So how to do the OSPF configuration is config router OSPF, then we have to set the router ID. So what the loopback address I have defined here 1.1, I am going to set this as a router ID. So 1.1.1, then we have to configure the area. So area I'm going to define that in a backbone area. So add this edit 0.0.0.0. So the backbone area is added to this particular interface. Save the configuration, and now I need to define the network. So for that the command is config network. So I'm going to add a entry. So for adding the entry edit 1, so that is for adding the first entry set prefix. So the set prefix is 192.168.1.0/24. Okay, so 192.168.1.0/24. Then next I'm going to add a next entry. So edit 2, that is the next entry adding the second network. So set prefix 1.1.1/32. Okay, now let us save the configuration. So also I've done with the OSPF configuration, show router OSPF. So this will show the OSPF what we have configured. So I configured config router OSPF and I set the router ID as 1.1.1, that is a loopback address. Then we have set the area as a backbone area. Then through config network, I advertise these two networks. Okay, so say similar way, let us configure the OSPF on this firewall 2 also. So go to firewall 2, config router OSPF. Okay, set the router ID. Already defined the loopback address. It is 2.2.2. So set router ID is 2.2.2, then we'll configure the area. So let us set the area in a backbone area. 0.0.0.0 is the backbone area. Then let us save the configuration, and then through network statement I am going to define or advertise these networks. Okay, so config network, let us make a first entry edit 1 and set prefix, the same prefix 192.168.1.0/24. Then the next prefix, say next, and edit 2, this is for adding a second network, that is set prefix 2.2.2/32, and save the configuration. Okay, so now let us view the running configuration, show router OSPF. So this will show the configuration, config router OSPF, and router ID, what you define the loopback address, I set it as a router ID. Then I have set the backbone area 0.0.0. Then through the network statement I added two entries where I advertise the prefix 192.168.1.network and 2.2.network. That is a loopback address. Okay, so now let us check the OSPF neighbor. So what's the command is get router OSPF. So get router info OSPF neighbor. Okay, so it's already neighbor relationships established. So you're able to see the remote neighbor, that is 2.2.2 is a loopback address. Okay, and the neighbor interface IP is 1.2 and the port is port 1. So similar way, let us check from port 2. So get router OSPF info get router info OSPF neighbor. So this is already established, this is DR and this is the backup thing. Okay, so now let us do the OSPF route. How to check the OSPF route is get router OSPF network, that is route. Okay, so now you are able to see, right, it already learned the remote network, that is 2.2 via OSPF. You are able to see the remote network. So these are the two directly connected networks and it already learned the remote network, and you are able to see the administrative distance and the other details. Similar way, from the second firewall, get router info OSPF route. So it is showing the route. So now let us do the ping. Execute ping this to a remote network, that is 2.2.2, 2.2.2. So still I am not able to reach the remote network even though it is advertised via OSPF. So let us do a ping from here also, execute ping 2.2.2. So I'm able to reach the directly connected networks, but I'm not able to reach the remote network still. So that means it requires a policy. Okay. So in this particular architecture, I need to configure a policy from port 1 to this loopback address. Port 1 to this loopback address. Then only I can ping the remote loopback interface. Okay. So how to configure the policies? Just go to the firewall one. Okay. So what are things we have done is first we have configured the physical interface, loopback address. Then we have configured the OSPF on both the firewall and also we advertise the network. Then we are able to see the neighbor relationship is established, but still we are not able to ping the remote loopback interface. That means we have to create a policy on both the firewall allowing from port 1 to this loopback interface. So the command is config firewall policy and add a first entry. Okay, and set the source interface should be port 1, and the destination interface that should be loopback address. What we have created loopback as loop, then we have to set the source address. So the source address will be all, and the destination address here I'm going to give as all. So if you want to specify any specific address, you can specify. In this particular thing I'm giving as all, and set schedule always. Okay, set service is, I can give specific ICMP service or I can give all, and set the action as accept. Okay, so this is the only thing. Now let us save the configuration. So similar manner I need to configure the same policy for the second firewall also. Let us show firewall policy. So I have done only source interface. I am allowing from port 1 to loopback interface. So source interface is port 1. Destination interface what we created is loop is a destination interface we have created, that is loop. Source address and the destination address are defined all, and also schedule always, and action is accept. Okay. So now let us copy this and paste it on the second firewall also. Okay, similar configuration. So let us take a notepad. Okay, so here let us copy this and let us now define the source interface, same thing. Okay, right, so let us copy this. So config firewall policy edit one, and now let us paste this. Okay, because similar rule we are going to create for second firewall also. So let us view it. Show firewall policy. The similar thing I have done for allowing from port 1 to this loopback interface. So now from this firewall on, let us try pinging this remote loopback address. Okay, so let us go here, execute ping 2.2.2. So now I'm able to reach the remote interface, and also let us check the neighbors. Get router info OSPF route. So now I'm able to ping the remote address, and also let us check from the firewall 2 also. Execute ping 1.1.1, that is my first firewall loopback interface I'm able to do. So for checking the configuration is get router info OSPF, let I can do interface also. Interface port 1, it will show all the OSPF details. Okay, it will show all the OSPF information, and for viewing the neighbor it is OSPF neighbor, and for checking the routing entries it is get router OSPF route. It will show all the routing entries. So these are the directly connected, and this is a remote loopback address learned via 1.1, right? So this is how you can configure the basic OSPF configuration via CLI in a FortiGate firewall. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos. Thanks and have a wonderful day. Thank you.